That
Today's episode of Fandom Spotting, I guess. Hi guys, I'm Zan, and I'm just here for the food.
Yeah, I'm Wax, former Bandom pop slash person.
I'm Kathy, and I am currently in the K-pop fandom.
Yeah, I guess I totally forgot about saying something about that. I used to be in K-pop fandom. I am kind of in Bandom, I guess. And sometimes I read really, really kinky One Direction fic because that fandom seems to have a lot of that. And yeah, I just hang out.
Yeah,
Um,
I was in the second wave of pop slash fandom in 2001, basically starting from about 1 month, I guess, after Helen posted her first stories, January 2001.
Oh wow, that's quite early. I got into it in 2003, um,
Yeah,
roundabout.
I'm from
But
way
I was
way
like
back.
16 or something, so my English was just about good enough to read the fic without it being work, you know.
hmm
does someone want to do like maybe a run through of chronology? Because I know am I exaggerating? I feel like maybe in the late '90s, when people talked about fandom, they were still really talking about like NSYNC and stuff. Am I wrong about that? And then later on, it became very much about different bands. So just so like our audience kind of have an idea what we're talking about.
I don't think NSYNC was ever considered Bandom. Nobody called it that.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so I think we should like maybe clarify our terms when we talk about what is
there was
fandom and what's.
Right. Well, there was a Bandom situation going on at that point where it was, Metallica and bands, but that was completely different, separate, and did not acknowledge the pop slash
Yeah, so many,
at
so
all.
many parts of like
Yeah,
music, RPF fandom are completely separate.
yeah.
Like fandom people often don't read pop slash or K-pop, and J-pop is totally separate, and other bands too that have like small fandoms or things you will only find on Yuletide and etc.
Yeah. I know that there was a fanfic fandom for Savage Garden in around.
Was there really?
Oh yeah, totally. In I want to say 2000. I mean 1997. I'm so
Oh
old.
my.
1997-ish. I mean, I was aware of it. I was in the fandom, but I wasn't fanficky.
Mm.
But there was a lot of speculation about, obviously, about Darren's sexuality, and there was definitely fiction posted. But that's all I know, because that was a long time ago.
Because like
And of course,
in my awareness, I feel like I always knew that there was Pop Slash, and then like I felt like after Pop Slash, there was like My Chemical Romance and Fallout Boy became like really really popular in terms of fandom. And then like I guess I always thought in terms of Western fandom, then it's like the One Direction stuff. But like I think as an outsider, like obviously I must be thinking about it very differently than somebody who is actually in it. Does someone want to like comment on if there are trends or anything?
mm, it's hard to say because there's the, like, I think when we say fandom, often, at least from my perspective, as I've seen it, the fandom is media slash, and then with like tentacles out into the RPF fandoms. And when they become aware of a fandom, then it becomes a fandom. But before that, it
Mm-hmm.
was its own thing by itself
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't connected to other fandoms at all. It needs like that, somebody starting archives and starting to talk about meta stuff and so forth to
Like
make it.
white people.
Who's that?
That's my wife, who doesn't realize that we're on the air.
Like white people, yes.
Yes, it means white people have to know about it before it becomes real. Before that, it was just a bunch of things that hadn't been explored yet, just people living it. Basically, yes.
Oh dear.
I actually do kind
So
of want to talk about this. Like, do you have bands that you feel like you really love as a fan, but you would never call yourself like in the fandom? And how do you like differentiate that in your head?
oh yeah, almost all things that I listen to,
Hmm.
because the fanish interest is really separate from just being a fan of the music.
Yeah, because like I feel that way because I'm actually not a huge K-pop fan, but obviously I am in one K-pop fandom for EXO,
Yeah,
and I'm not in. I like there's a lot of other groups that I like, and I could tell you all the members and like tell you their songs and like their eras or whatever. But like I would never call myself in that fandom, and I'm sure even in other fandoms there's like a distinct group of people who are like really into the musicians and like buy all their CDs and go to concerts and everything, but like still like I don't know, like at what point do you like, and I think we've probably been those fans too, but still wouldn't say
mm,
that we're in the fandom. So I think it is like really interesting at what point you say, like, is it when you start producing fanish output? Is it when you start reading fanish output? Is it when you create meta? Is it like how is it that it changes at that point?
I think part of it is when you start interacting with other fans,
Mm-hmm.
because I can be really into something by myself, but then I don't feel like I'm in the fandom unless I'm actually sharing with people and
Yeah.
doing fanish things.
Yeah, I agree, especially because I'm mostly a reader, so I
Mm,
don't really have much Finnish output unless you count like gushing about things on Twitter.
yeah,
And when I talk with other people about specific aspects, and sometimes the Finnish output of other people, which I wouldn't necessarily count as meta, but sometimes is, I guess, then I consider myself in the fandom mostly.
yeah, yeah. And then, well, I guess when you're in the fandom, you sort of follow the fandom as a whole, and you become aware of trends in the fandom, and you sort of, like, if you're just into a band or
Mm-hmm.
so forth, you don't actually know what they're doing all the time, and you don't know what the fans are doing all the time.
Right.
You might have to Google things. Like, you don't just know where they are on the internet.
Unless you have friends on Twitter who are very, 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 very into
Well,
a certain
yeah,
band or
unless
whatever.
but then you're experiencing vanish osmosis.
Yeah. Like I know a lot about the band. I don't know if it's just VIX because it's the abbreviation, the acronym VIXX, the
Oh, Vix, yeah,
Korean.
the
Yeah,
yeah, the new band.
I
They're
hate that
relatively
name
new.
because
Vix.
it's
I have no idea
wanking
what it
in
is, but I have
German.
definitely seen it.
Yeah. It's the name is it's wanking in German, so I always read it like that
Oh.
because I didn't want to say it out loud because like, okay.
Oh,
But
well,
I know
we
a
don't
lot
understand,
about them.
right?
Like I've seen
I
about 1,000 pictures, I think.
Yeah, I don't know anything, but I have definitely seen that. Like, I didn't know it was a band, but I've seen their the sign of them around. But I'm pretty
Understandable.
monomanic right now. Like, unless it has to do with hockey, I'm not noticing.
Mm. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I consider myself multi-fanish, but if I'm on a reading binge or watching binge or whatever, I don't really pay attention to the other things, even though I still consider myself fanish.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
I'm
think?
I'm
No, please.
I'm absolutely a Finnish butterfly. Um, so I can only sit on one flower at a time.
I do
So,
actually kind of wonder, like, I feel like as an, if you're in the Avengers fandom, it's like much
hmm
easier to maybe fandom hop, like, into Iron Man or into Captain America or whatever. Did you feel the same way in music fandom? I know I feel like an incredible pressure now that I'm in a K-pop fandom to be like in all the K-pop fandoms, but that's,
mm,
I think, a unique structure of things like K-pop and things like J-pop because,
they're all
they,
connected.
yeah, exactly. Like they all share companies and whatever, and it's like very
Yeah. Well,
obvious.
like
And
Marvel.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So like, did you feel that way in other band? I guess I'm just really, really very interested in what like other
Yes.
fandom feels like.
Yes, fandom and pop slash both like that. like you kind of, even if you're mainly a Fall Out Boy fan or mainly a My Chemical Romance fan or
Mhm.
mainly NSYNC or mainly Backstreet Boys or
Mhm.
whatever, the other parts just kind of happen because they tour together, they know each other, are in the same companies, they are always in the same magazines
Mhm.
and so forth, and they get mentioned in the same places, and their fans interact.
Yeah, there's lots of crossover and fic,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
And I don't know, I don't feel like it's a crossover when they basically are in the same universe.
And they like will tour together and stuff, or go to like
Yeah,
big
yeah,
concerts
exactly.
together, right? Like it's like there's a lot of
Yeah,
interaction. I think that's kind of the fun thing about being in fandom,
yeah.
music fandom.
Well, it's the same with Marvel. You know, you can't. You're like, yeah, I'm an Avengers fan, but obviously then you're also completely aware of what Iron Man is doing because he's part of that.
Right. You have to. It's your
Yeah,
canon.
yeah, exactly.
RPF,
So it's not. I don't think it's a different fandom as such.
Yeah.
yeah, RPF fandom really, because they're real people, they're alive now.
Mm-hmm.
At least this part of RPF fandom, media fandom, I guess.
Yeah.
And you can make them interact in fic, or they could ostensibly interact in real life.
And often they do.
They do.
Yeah. And obviously in hockey, they all also meet all the time. So I mean, one team, and then suddenly they're on the same team.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, it's
like Adam Lambert and Johnny Weir meeting in real life.
yes,
So
yes, and there you have a crossover and so forth.
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys feel like it's different from being in other RPF fandoms? Like, is it more like, the crossover potential, the kind of information that you get in terms of like how to build canon material, to understand a band? Like, I mean, the one other RPF fandom I've been in is like very weird and obscure, so I feel like it's really hard to compare. But I don't know, like, you guys see much more multi fandom, so
I don't,
ideas.
I, I don't know. It's not even that different from some media fandoms as
Mm-hmm.
such. Like, then again, I guess I'm very unscientific in going about it. I just kind of let myself absorb everything.
For me, it's the music really, because I have real trouble watching a movie all in one go, or a TV episode or whatever.
Mm.
But I listen to music pretty much all day, every day, and you get, well, I do. I get into a state of mind, I guess, and I sometimes remember things I've read about them, or the lyrics are evocative of something, so it's much more immediate for me.
Mm-hmm.
In contrast to other media fandoms, where I maybe see a picture and it's a similar feeling, but not quite the same.
Mm. I'm not. I'm trying to remember. It was also long ago. It, literally 12 years ago. Um, since I started with the whole NSYNC thing. Well, I was a child. Actually, I was 25. Um, I felt like a child.
Now I feel like a child. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, I'm so old. Um, I I didn't like the music at all. I just started with the fic, and I don't
Mm.
like the music now. Like
Oh
after,
yeah. Actually, this is a good point. Do you always like the music of the fandom in your end? Like, my God, my band came back with a terrible song.
No,
no,
no, I
And
do
no.
not.
So how do you justify that? Like when you talk to somebody else, like how do you explain? Like I'm in this band, I don't really like their music, but God, I really love, being in
when
this
I
band. This is the
when I
song.
was really into the band, the like pop slash, when I was really into it, I listened to the music all the time. It's
Really?
just like, yeah, I just became, I don't know, I guess brainwashed into, and I mean, it is decent pop. It's not that. It's just that that's not really where
What
my
you would
brain is at most
usually
of the
listen
time.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, Before that and after that, I'm more into, I guess, more, I want to say, more hardcore electronica, or
Mm-hmm.
then punk or whatever.
Mm.
Not not. the most commercial pop. Then again, of course, I'm also into Adam Lambert, so there we go. Um, but basically, I would never have listened to NSYNC unless I was in the fandom first, and then just started with giggling and squirming listening to it, and then just suddenly I just needed it all the time, like a drug. And I even own the Christmas album.
You own the Christmas album?
I do.
That's so
Yes.
great.
I made my family listen to it on Christmas.
God.
Yes, I did. So
I totally understand what you mean about brainwashing though. Like you get this weirdly defensive thing, like it's like
Yeah.
your chosen band, and like
Yep.
like you're allowed to make
they're
fun of them.
totally good.
Yeah, exactly. And then after a while, it's like, and I think this is really different for me in terms of media fandom, because I think it's much easier for me in a media fandom to like be really analytical about this when I talk to somebody else. You know, I'm like, oh well, so-and-so movie really wasn't that good, but whatever. You know, the characters were interesting, or
Yeah.
I really liked whatever. But like when it comes to the band, you're like, no, you have to admit that it's listenable or whatever. Like you're not allowed to touch them. It's funny.
Yeah, yeah. And it's I guess it's because you can't be watching video all the time, but
Right.
just the listening to music all the time. I mean, it's a strong emotional content, emotional. What do I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's emotional,
Yeah, definitely. Very emotional. Very emotional.
and it just starts meaning things, and you start hearing all these like signs in there, and you sit there and analyze like one little hitch in the voice at a specific passage, and it's like, oh my god, listen to that, come on, listen to that.
And you get like really attached to like the line that your favorite member sings, right? And it's like a big deal to you when you hear it. Like
I could still point out like the best part of that Justin and JC sang in any song of NSYNC's Uber ever.
Oh God.
Yep, I still remember. I don't remember what the song is called anymore, but I know what that sounded like, and that was great. Like,
Dan, come on, Dish. I think you're like getting off easy on this. Admit your embarrassing music fandom.
Well, I can
Highs
totally
and
say
lows.
that my first ever CD was Take That.
Oh, I was flashy
that
about
I bought myself.
Which era of Take That was that?
Oh my God, I was like, wait, let me think. I was 12, so that was, I think, the Best Of album.
Oh, see, I was around when they were
Really big, right?
Yeah. Like I had I remember when Babe came out. You know, it was like a huge thing at the time, and I had a huge crush on Robbie Williams, of course, and I was completely convinced that Robbie and Mark were a thing. Like baby 14-year-old me was having, you know, Nash and Slashy feelings about that, and I do believe I totally absolutely wrote some drawer fic about it too.
Actually, I also wrote some terrible fic about bands when I was like 12 or something, but it was all AC/DC and The Who.
AC/DC and The Who, okay.
Yeah.
Still listening to your dad's band?
Yeah, exactly. We had like LPs, and we didn't get MTV until 1998. So it was only then that I was exposed to like pop music, and I dove into it head first.
Yeah. I was sort of the same. I mean, we didn't have MTV. I listened to like my pop music input when I was still living at home was basically, and I'm talking about when I was like 11, 12, 13. We had 2 channels. So I listened to this one pop show called Hittimittari. That was basically, it was the list, like the Finnish video list of the week or whatever with Mikko Alatalo. Anyway, these are like Finnish things, and I watched it every week. And like my memory of this is seeing the video for everybody knows this song, Cutting Crew, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight.
Uh,
This is from 1987, so this is when I was watching Hittimittari and learning about pop.
Oh man, I think that is over the years it has changed a lot, especially because the interaction with the band is much easier now.
Yeah.
And actually, do you guys like ever interact with band members on Twitter or
No.
something? Never?
No.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've been, I've gotten like a reply sometimes and something like that from people like Gabe Saporta
Nice.
or so forth, because he's very chatty and
Yeah, he is.
yeah, and so stuff like that.
But
Oh yeah, and Slash once tweeted me.
ooh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
and he DM'd me. I've got it saved. Yeah.
I think
God.
I feel
Drop a
like
name.
in K-pop fandom at least, I think there's like not a huge divide, but I do think there's a group of fans that are very much into interacting with the members and like going to fan meetings if they can make it to Korea, or acting sort of as a fan. And then there's a whole nother group that sort of does more of the fanish stuff, like making
Yeah.
fan vids or writing fanfic or doing meta or whatever. And
Right.
I'm not saying that fans can't be both. They are often both, but obviously the cultural thing has something to do with it. But it's just
Yeah.
like a very different way. Like some people who are really big fans of the band and who do the interaction, like I
Yeah.
won't say look down, but find it kind of problematic that there is this whole other part of the fandom that's about like shipping or like making
Yeah.
up interactions that aren't real. And I'm sure that must be true about like more modern bands like One Direction. I think there's like
Yeah. And I think there's like this mutual suspicion
yeah.
between I noticed that in specifically in Adam Lambert fandom
Hmm.
with the people who are just Glambert or whatever who are music fans and are like super into Adam the person and musician and who
Right, yeah.
follow him around and dress up for concerts and so forth, and then the people who sit on the internet and write meta and fic and whatnot, and but wouldn't want to interact with him directly.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know where that suspicion comes from. Like, I think part of it must be like, oh, like, kind of like embarrassed that you're.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't want to say like shame or embarrassment, but there is sort of like, one side is like, oh, you're just like are in it for the gay or whatever, and the other side is like,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I don't know how to
Yeah. But
articulate
it's like
this.
half the fandom is like, oh my god, stop stalking him and
Yeah.
running after him, and the other part is to stop writing creepy fic about him.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Definitely.
Two different but equally intense ways of fanning or spanning or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're pretty separate.
Yeah, I think it's often coincidence, like whatever part of that fandom you get into first, like being that kind of fan who just wants to interact and know everything, or the people who believe very firmly in the fourth wall and separating RPF and RPS from the actual musicians.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
I do actually. I have a question though. Like, so in K-pop, there's a really common type of fic, which is like where you have a band member and the other person in the pairing is like you, and the idea is like you is the fangirl, So it's like, so and so member like takes you out on a date or like whatever. Like, did that happen in the other?
Yes, but they're separate from that. Again, separate from the slashers.
Yeah, right. So that's like another like completely separate like fandom.
Yeah.
But
The self-insert.
yes, the self-insert. There we go. I couldn't think of the word for it.
Yeah, I noticed there's a lot of that on Tumblr, like a lot. Even in hockey fandom, which is
Really?
Oh yes. They're all like, I just posted I just posted the part 59 of my Sidney Crosby fic, and it's basically Sidney Crosby me. And this is like the story, and they don't even have titles for their stories. It's just I'm writing one Sidney Crosby fic, I'm writing one Claude Giroux fic, I'm writing one Jeff Skinner fic. It's a completely different world, and they're very enthusiastic, and I know nothing about them. They just pop up there in tag. It's so strange how, I mean, these worlds are around,
Yeah.
and we don't know them.
Yeah, and it just feels really like weird sometimes when you venture out, like, you know, into like away from your friends' Twitter accounts, away from your friends' Tumblrs, and like realize like how massive the fandom that you are nominally in is actually.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is true for like all things, but I feel like specifically like in RPF fandoms that I've known, like, you know, they carve out these areas and you like stick to that area, and it, like everything else is weird.
And then you say, oh, I'm in this fandom, but
Yeah.
you only know the little pool that you're hanging out in, and there's a whole ocean around you. But I guess that's how it works, because you can't possibly interact with something that humongous big. You know, it's just so big. You have to pick your spot.
And Wax, have you found that to be different, like, now than it used to be? Because you were in like fandom, and like probably much longer. You were in like music fandom for probably much longer than I've been in fandom.
I imagine that it's actually kind of the same. We just didn't know. It wasn't as easy to find that, because then it was not just different fanish groups, it was different forums as well. Like they wouldn't be on the same platform, so you wouldn't even know about them, like the other people.
Members of One Direction get like ad replies on Twitter all the time, but I remember one of the main points of interaction with, for example, Fall Out Boy back in the day was the Q&A on the website, because Pete would answer like a lot of questions, and quite interestingly too.
Yes. Well, and he used to have a live journal.
Oh yeah, the live journal.
And they had MySpaces and such.
But
you know, they were early internet people too.
Some poets were much more separate, though. So, for example, when I got into band fandom on the internet, so to say, after actually writing things myself, terrible things, it was on a mailing list, which is, you can hardly imagine like nowadays. But the author had a website, but she didn't want to post her real person fic on there, obviously. So she had a mailing list.
Yahoo group.
Yes, exactly. It was a Yahoo group.
Yes, a locked Yahoo group. I know of this.
And she would post like every second day you'd get an email with like chapter 21 or whatever, and it was pretty cool actually. Especially because I had a really crappy internet connection, so
you just had to load it up and you got it in the email.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, my first postings at all were on mailing lists. You know, back when you went on the mailing list and you posted your fic there, and then somebody would post it on the archive for you, because that's how it worked back then. You know, this was in media fandom, not even in RPF. But back everything worked like that. Back, you know, like in 1999.
We actually had a very interesting Twitter question just now, and it's basically on our list from Samira. Have you guys ever looked at written fic about the music videos for songs? I remember that being a thing. Oh. Well, I haven't, because I don't write.
I've only seen it in Yuletide. Like I saw one for Lady Gaga's Bad Romance. And I think probably I feel like I've seen something for like that Aha video. The one with the... Yes, exactly. That one.
There was quite a lot of stuff in Bandom though too, for like.
Oh yeah, of course, because the Vampire Verse and
yes,
and
exactly.
that, 16 Candles. Yes, there was a lot. and for MCRs, we're in Afghanistan.
Yeah, yeah.
That one.
Wait, which video is this that they were in Afghanistan?
They weren't actually in Afghanistan, but the what's it called? Welcome to the Black Parade.
Yeah.
But also somebody wrote like an epic about that was like World War II, and it was based on that one, the Ghost of You, which had like a World War II theme, a video where they stormed the beach in Normandy. You know.
This is very popular, I think, in K-pop, but that's normally
Storming
because
because they have story videos, right?
yeah, they have like concepts, I think is the best way to think of it. So like every comeback or like every era in a band, there'll be like, you know, something. And like usually there's some sort of gimmick in the most recent bands, like like BAP has like this alien gimmick, and so that's like very common. And like my band, for instance, had this like superpower concept when they first started. So I think I wouldn't say like basing it specifically on the music video, but definitely as new music videos come out, you can definitely see a shift in the stories that are written and are available, and like what kind of themes come in. So I don't know. Yeah,
like episode tags in TV fandom.
Yeah. Well, I think that thing was. I mean, the themes and specific looks for an album and music videos. I mean, that was really present in My Chemical Romance because of how Gerard Way, you know, approached writing and designing for albums. So I think that was definitely present there in the Finnish media output as well, because he invited it.
It was very much a vision that he orchestrated, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like a whole thing. I always kind of pictured like a stage setting and all the members and costumes and the story behind everything, even just the pictures. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that does kind of make music fandom like fun though, and like more like a traditional media fandom.
Yeah.
Because you could definitely get, I think if you were always stuck for an inspiration, you could always go and like listen to the songs or listen to the music or listen to the albums and like come up with something like that.
There's definitely a universe that's separate from the like just RPF universe.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're not just like people; they're also like people who may be in this universe where they're like vampires or whatever.
Well, I guess that's why certain types of bands have bigger RPF fandoms than
yes,
because they invite that, so like they have those personas that they cultivate, and it's not just like some dude with a guitar on a stage, you know, being real. Nobody nobody wants the real.
I kind of wonder, like, does Coldplay have a fandom? Does anyone know?
Like, yeah, exactly. I don't know. Probably the self-insert kind.
Because like I think like their early albums are very much like real, right? Like it's a person with a guitar. I mean, it's a band with a person with a guitar, but like that's their whole band. But then they did like Viva La Vida, and that definitely had concept.
Maybe at that point. I don't know if they've reached like critical mass for a fandom of that type, but who knows? I mean, it could exist anywhere. They could be like a Brazilian Coldplay fanfic fandom, and we wouldn't know about it.
I could actually Google that.
Yeah,
because I do speak Portuguese.
So there you go.
The first Google result for Coldplay RPF is why does Coldplay RPF exist on Tumblr as a tag?
Apparently it does exist. There you go.
Oh my god. And the tags are like why?
Well, the answer to why is because it's the internet. Everything exists. If you've thought about it, somebody's already done it.
Who are we supposed to ship in Coldplay together?
I
Can
don't
we get
know
answers?
anybody. I don't know anybody.
I just know Chris Martin.
I only know Group's husband.
Personas. When you write fanfic, do you make an active distinction between who you're writing about, or does it sort of like depend on the fic or whatever? This is like a big question, I think, in K-pop. Like, how much of the person you know is actually their persona and how much of it's actually them? And so, I don't know, that is something I found very interesting about music fandom.
Well, I didn't make like a specific decision to be like persona versus real person. It just kind of amalgamated in my head and became like its own. Once you start writing about someone or something, it has to come alive, in your head, and then at that point it separates from whatever reality was there in the first place, and it just becomes its own, and like it has to live inside the story verse that you've created anyway, right?
Okay,
I guess, yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Just as a quick aside, there are 23 works in Coldplay Band on Archive of Our Own, and apparently we're supposed to chip Johnny Buckland and Chris Martin, whose portmanteau is Buckin.
No!
Yes, it is. That's
see.
amazing. I'm going to have to read this later. It's like,
Why
okay.
isn't it like Martland or something? Buckin sounds so awful.
Well,
It could never
Well.
it couldn't be as bad as Tricky Fish.
Tricky Fish isn't even that bad. At least it's like, I don't know, like
it's
clearly a
kinda clever.
smush name. Yeah, I know. I think that's kind of clever.
No,
Bucket.
it's just my inherent bias against land.
back to the personas.
Dan, why did
I
you
think
do this? Now I'm just reading it. There's like a whole universe called Aliens.
I'm sorry.
About Coldplay.
Yeah, about Coldplay. Oh,
Anyway, about
parents,
personas.
two parents. What? Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go back.
No, I just want to say that there's some element of that, like in photo shoots and how the band presents itself in interviews, but there's also, as a fan, you do a lot of interpretation based on the lyrics, which ends up in fanfiction a lot. Like, oh yeah, that lyric is totally about that other band member or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
Well, less
based
so
on
in
the
pop.
videos too.
Less so in pop, where the music wasn't actually always written by them, and
Yeah.
sometimes written in committee. And the pop music writing situation is completely different from how they do it in rock. Since in rock, the authenticity is so important.
Yes.
You have to write it by yourself while cutting and crying and drinking whiskey.
Oh
No, basically, you have to, while there are ghosts eating your head, you have to write the music while suffering and bleeding. Whereas in pop, it's like, I just called up Pitbull and then we had like a session. Yeah.
On Skype.
It's different. On Skype, yeah, we had a Skype session.
Oh, by the way, we got Samira says on Twitter, I remember years ago on LJ, I read a fic about Guns N' Roses, November Rain, which was all about how Axl Rose hooked up with Slash at the wedding and had sad, angry sex after the funeral.
Oh shit!
So,
I'd like
that
to read
final
that.
scene is his apology. Okay.
Samira, you should link us to this story if you can find
This sounds
it.
pretty brilliant. They also had story videos, and it was all about Axl Rose's troubled mind.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I remember that. Gosh.
I guess like one thing, so like K-pop definitely, usually the musicians do not, well, if you can call them musicians, the members of the band usually do not write their own music. It's very rare. And they usually don't write their own words. That's also very rare. And they get like basically very little artistic direction. So I think like when I met with the persona for them, it's like often you have somebody who maybe often portrays the cold-hearted man or whatever in a music video, or like is considered, like the baby type during TV shows, and like that bleeds into very much how you write them or how you see them, which may or may not be true, right? Because like they sell personas. I think even more
Yeah.
so than in like Western pop music.
Yeah, because they're really directed by the Svengali type, Johnny or whoever. I guess that's in
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
J-pop,
yeah, yeah.
but yes, but somebody like designs them on
Yeah.
purpose, and they have strict contracts. Like they're not allowed to show their girlfriends or whatever. Like it's a whole thing,
Yeah,
or so I've been
exactly.
told.
And it feels like I mean I feel like you get into these like ruts where like in every band there has to be like that guy who's like
Mm-hmm.
super intensely sexual or whatever, right? And they're like,
Yeah,
17-year-old boys, this is preposterous. But like
yeah,
like it's just it's like really, I don't know, I think it's like really interesting because it's so easy to write that kind of fic, and
yeah,
usually the music videos or the songs or the concepts will like bleed into it. And so you get
yeah.
this like universe which is like not even maybe really even the people that they are.
Yeah, and
But
it's
their
also
roles.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like trope fiction, but like tropes of tropes. I don't like tropes of people, trope fiction. I'm
Yeah, and
waving my hands. Nobody
personality.
can see this.
Yeah, you're making that timey-wimey. Yeah.
And like personality coded by hair color.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true in K-pop and J-pop sometimes, and obviously like Spice Girls.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was more.
Spice Girls.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was more true about boy bands in like the early 90s.
Mm.
Like it was actually true in Western boy bands and girl bands as well then. And they did have
Crazy
very
guy
little. Yeah.
with the bleached hair, or the
Mhm.
bleached tips or something. Yep.
Oh yeah, NSYNC had that whole like collect the whole set Pokemon feel to them too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, because they were constructed by
Yeah.
Lou Pearlman,
Mm.
Creeper, actual kitty diddling Creeper.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I mean, I don't
and
know much about One Direction. Is it like that there? Are they?
I don't know either, because
Well, I guess their creeper is God, what's his name from Idol?
I mean,
Simon
I fully
Cowell.
admit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know if Simon Cowell can aspire to the depths of creepiness that Lou Pearlman
I
had.
don't think
I
he
mean,
can.
back
But
in the day, in NSYNC fandom, we made constant jokes about Lou Pearlman and his pedo ways, and it was somewhat disconcerting to find out, 10 years after the fact that, oops, it was completely true.
you shouldn't have joked about it.
Maybe
Maybe you made it into
Yeah,
reality.
I don't know. It was just,
hindsight
but
of 2020.
yeah, but it was kind of. It was just, yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, now that
Yeah,
we've
that killed the mood there. Okay.
I was actually thinking about because the personas still, and there are real people involved, and sometimes there are scandals
Mm-hmm.
and things happen that are not supposed to happen.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's quite interesting how the musicians themselves deal with it. Like, for example, dick pictures of Pete Wentz, or
Yeah.
hair shaving of that one.
That one guy with the hair who does not have the hair anymore.
That doesn't matter anymore.
One of the
No,
dimensions
I was
directions.
thinking about a
Oh,
Korean
Justin.
girl band,
Is it
and
is
she
it
did something like went out with her boyfriend, and she's not supposed to have a boyfriend, so she shaved her hair in apology.
I don't know about that, but I
Wow.
do know
Okay.
I do know Block B, after their fiasco, their leader shaved his head as an apology.
Apology shaving. Okay, that is new. See, in the Western
Probably.
in the Western band, it's more like, oh my God, he shaved off his curls, and then it's like then people cry about it. It wasn't any more dramatic than that.
How dare he
apology-
change his hair?
Yeah, seriously. Apology shaving is another thing that I had not heard of. But I mean, when Justin Timberlake shaved his head, I know somebody made a parody LJ account called Justin's Fro or the Fro or something, and it actually lived for a while.
The fro was not a good look for him.
What the
I'm
fro was
sorry.
the best. I'm sorry, I had a
No.
giant Justin head, and the fro
No.
was my boy.
Ah.
I actually saw a picture of him with Barack Obama yesterday or something,
Mhm.
and I thought that hair, yeah, nice. But more like for myself, you know. But
Yeah.
still,
I just like big girls, and I cannot lie.
I think scandals that I find really interesting are scandals that involve people who are like in the band members' lives but are not in fact in the band. So like girlfriends or like
Like Gerard and his crazy fiance,
this is
or
exactly what
now
I think about actually.
and now Mikey and his crazy fiance or
Yes,
whatever.
and that
Yes,
one
basically
too.
those things. I don't know what they seem to just invite that kind of thing.
I think it is
Or
really good.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
continue.
no, I mean, or Pete Wentz and his various.
Who's the one who like had a girlfriend and like was also posting Instagram pictures of his like other girlfriend? Or,
No, that
am I
was
making this
Mikey.
up? That was
Mikey
Mikey.
Way, yeah.
And that one girlfriend's that was his wife and his fiance.
There we go. His wife and his fiance. Yeah, and
I have no idea what happened since then because I kind of checked out after that. I was like, whoa.
so like I mean I guess it's kind of interesting because I feel like when you have members in the band as a fan, you almost feel like you're entitled to like know things about them as people, but like then
Yeah.
you have these scandals that aren't about people, and it's like you draw these lines, and it gets really uncomfortable when you write RPF about like things
Yeah.
that aren't your business.
Yeah, but at the same time, while you're writing RPF about them, it's like, if I don't include hints of this or if I don't mention
Yeah,
this, I'm being inauthentic. But if I do, I'm being a creeper.
exactly, and like
Yeah, it's difficult.
I feel like that's true of all RPF, but like I felt like somehow this is especially obvious in music fandom because it doesn't really come up, and since their interactions are usually with the people in the band, it's like you somehow get into this assumption that the people in the band are like all the people that are ever in their life, right? So
Yeah,
you, like,
but of course,
always
then they know people and they sleep with
exactly.
people and
It's
and
a
they
weird
have
line
yeah.
because you have the whatever girlfriends, boyfriends, wives, etc., and they're not usually in the
They're
public
not,
eye,
yeah, they're
as
not
it
famous.
were, at least not on purpose. And do you write about them? Do you not? Do you cliff them just so you can write the band member with another band member?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always kind of problematic.
Yeah, I find that I think it's especially difficult because using their full names in your stories, it makes it Googleable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I was just seeing some story. This was in hockey fandom, but still, it's like, and it was like hockey player slash actual girlfriend's actual full name, and I'm like, no, she's not actually famous. And now when she Googles herself or her mom Googles, I don't know. It's just like, do you want to ignore her because I mean, she is a person, she exists. Yeah, it just at that point my brain is like, too much conundrums. I'm
That is the nice
leaving.
thing about K-pop and J-pop is that since they're not really
They don't exist.
allowed to
Yeah,
have
exactly.
anybody
You don't
else.
have these issues.
Well, I do, but like at the same time, it's like much easier because like
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if I was in a fandom where there was like an actual girlfriend, she was like a real person, I would feel really uncomfortable like needing to cliff her or like needing to give a reason why they broke up. But since like that doesn't exist, I mean, it's a fictional character already, so it's like it's okay if I write, things happening to her life. I don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
so difficult.
Well, at that point when they have wives and whatnot, then I'm like, no, we're going AU, and I'm not gonna write canon because it's because I am not gonna kill a girl, or I don't know. I mean, it was easier to ignore when it wasn't like a confirmed thing.
Yeah.
When they weren't talking about them all the time or whatever, but once they're married and they're like when they make a thing of it, as in they mention it, talk about it, then it's definitely officially all the way canon.
Yeah.
and
But I
and
do
then you
find
have
it,
to kind of acknowledge it.
yeah, I just, because there's always interaction, I do find it intensely creepy if fans of a band, let's say One Direction, contact like the
Oh
significant
yeah.
other
Oh
of a band
yeah.
member. I think that's so creepy. For example, I had years ago a friend, and she befriended this girl who was, I mean, this is not music fandom, but she was the niece of Michelle Pfeiffer because she was a huge Michelle Pfeiffer fan, and I was like,
Mm.
dude, that is not okay.
Yeah, that's really.
That's really stalker behavior, to be honest.
Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
but
I
I do.
almost. I feel like this is like I'm trying to decide like how I feel about this, and I wonder if it's maybe just because with musicians, like they offered themselves up as musicians, and like we can't like
Hmm.
go interfere with like who they are as like actual people. It's kind of like how I feel about Supernatural fandom, even though I'm not in it.
Mm.
Like you're like really fans of them as like the actors who are in Supernatural, and I know there's like conspiracy theories about like who they actually are as real people, but I think that's like why it makes me deeply uncomfortable.
Tin
Like
hatting is always a bit because it's so intense and so
yeah.
personal.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also it's I feel like it's almost like a social contract you make with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that figure, right? Like you interact with them because that's who they are, and then like somebody's nieces is like that's like them as real people, and then you just
Yeah.
like leave them alone.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
you make a contract with them while they're not in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
Okay. Are we almost out of time? Wait, wait, Dan, can you read this thing Samira is telling us about Celine Dion?
She created her own
Mary Sue?
for
What does
Mary
that
Sue.
mean?
No, Samira says, something is wrong with me because thinking about story videos has my head screaming, Celine Dion, it's all coming back to me. Which, let's face it, is kind of Celine Dion creating her ultimate Mary Sue and infecting us all with it. Because, yeah,
Well,
she
so
was,
has I mean, Beyonce has created her own Mary Sue.
Yeah,
oh
Sasha
yeah.
Fierce.
Many people, many. It's not in fact uncommon, but I guess Celine Dion would be the scariest.
Wait,
That's
out of fandoms that I'm wondering if they exist, what about Taylor Swift fandom? Is there like a Taylor Swift fandom that
Oh
like I
yeah.
have to think
Oh
about
yeah.
her?
Yes.
What is it like?
I don't know.
Do they
It's
ship her with
very,
other dudes?
sometimes,
Or
uh,
girls?
like, yes, definitely girls too, like from the Disney. I don't want to say stable, but it's kind of the Disney.
Disney stable.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Well, it is the stable of Disney people.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just leave that right there. Yeah, Taylor Swift. It's in, as far as I know, I'm not personally in Taylor Swift fandom, but it's intensely separated into people shipping her with like the Disney women,
Yeah.
girls, whatever, and the people shipping and writing her with her boyfriends of the.
Or Sidney Crosby, apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
That was pretty funny. They asked Sidney
It was.
Crosby about it. Like there was at some point a rumor that she was dating Sidney Crosby, and he was like, "No."
There are so many rumors, and often those rumors spur fic. So
Or they might be born in fic, and then someone is like, "Oh my God, this is a thing," and then you see it on Twitter, and then it spreads. I
and
bet
then you
that's
see it on
happened.
Tumblr, and then
Yeah.
And then
it
it's
shows
real.
up in Google
And then
results,
someone asks Sidney Crosby about it.
and they make GIF sets. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Or photo manipulation's always a good thing.
Oh yes. And then they take those and have them signed.
Oh God. Speaking about weird interactions.
That having explicit fan art signed thing that happened in Lord of the Rings RPS fandom, Low Trip.
Is that more common now, or did that always used to be a thing? And it's just like it feels more common to me now because like Twitter and Tumblr allows us
No,
to like. find these interactions?
I think because it was so hard to interact with people back in the olden days of old timiness.
Olden days of old time.
That it didn't happen. Although I'm sure, I mean, there were these parts where the people, the fans and the objects clashed over things like that. But I'm thinking about what was it, that guy from that old show about space that's called Blake 7. Yes, Blake 7. Telling the fans not to write fanfic about him because he thought he was creepy. Although that was specifically the gay fanfic. But anyway, so that was like an early part. But it's probably got more blatant because the marketing, the way things are marketed now, are much more interactive. So basically, you're always somehow able to interact with your fanish objects.
And you're supposed to be able to. Like many musicians and bands, they get bonuses for many Twitter followers or whatever.
Exactly.
And obviously, so they're supposed to interact and.
So, and that's how they get to see the manips.
And of course, many of them, as far as I know, get media training as well from their label. So it's a little different from, in the olden days again.
Of old timiness.
When it was just Pete Wentz going on and on and on.
Yes.
On LJ.
Yeah. Or Ryan Ross stalking Pete Wentz on LJ.
Oh yeah. That's true.
And posting selfies of himself.
We did get a Tumblr ask about that, but I guess we have mostly answered it in the course of the conversation about, how do you think fandom in relation to more current RPF fandoms like 1D treated the fourth wall? I feel like many, especially Fall Out Boy, were certainly aware of fandom, but how have things like Twitter and Tumblr changed that? Yeah, I'm going to say we've mostly answered that. Has anyone anything to add?
Well, just that it was happening then, the interaction, but it's even more intense now and even more encouraged by marketing forces, and they're trying to monetize it much more now.
I think I know at least in K-pop that has always been a thing, is like interacting with your fans because that's the point of having them. So I don't really know if it's like changed much, at least in that aspect. But I do know, there's, going back to the whole thing about like the two different sides of fandom, like one is like stop writing creepy gay fanfic and the other's like stop stalking them. There's definitely been issues where like fan clubs, which is like a big K-pop thing, like everybody will have a like a band will have a fan club, but also each individual members will have a fan club. They'll like bring huge banners with like pairing names or like pictures and stuff to like fan meetings, which is usually incredibly, I think, uncomfortable. Although I'm sure that the bands are like taught how to like deal with it. So I don't know if it's like more or less common now, but that's definitely always been a thing. And I think everybody just sort of politely pretends that it doesn't exist for like everybody else's, well-being.
Some people in Western fandoms encourage it, and some ignore it. I've noticed,
And sometimes
they troll. Sometimes they troll.
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes they make fun of it a little bit.
Which I feel is kind of their prerogative, because, but still, it can make for some uncomfortable situations, and some fans can get super butthurt about it.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's like, oh, we're done?
No, sorry, I was just thinking about...
we don't have like a firm timetable.
Yeah.
So it's not like, okay, it's
No, I was...
7 p.m., we have to stop. No.
Right. Well, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just thinking
No, I
about it.
Yeah.
Said something that sounded very suspicious.
Right.
We do seem to have run out of things to talk about at just the right moment.
Yeah. Okay. So
I mean, I always try to end things with something that you like about fandom this week. We don't have to do it, but you can if you like. It does not.
Yes,
Like
please.
usually when I ask this question, it does not have to be related to the topic at hand, so don't feel like you have to say something about music fandom. But so I don't know.
what we like about fandom.
Something you liked about fandom this week, like something fun that you saw or a picture that you liked or whatever.
Oh, I don't know. Playoffs. Brr. Like, there is nothing else.
Hockey. Yeah, me too, pretty much, to be honest.
It's basically ugly beards.
Oh, because they have like playoff haircuts and stuff, right?
Yeah,
like,
yes.
Yeah.
Mullet Watch 2013.
Updates on the mullet.
Is that a hashtag? Can we link to that later? Mullet Watch?
No, it's. I think it's. Is it Lazarus who posts the Kane mullet watch? I mean, he asked the mullet. Yeah.
It's
specific for one dude. Yeah.
For the Chicago Sun, and he had some people ask him about whether Patrick Kane was going to have a mullet again this year. And he asked Kane about it, and Kane went out with some teammates and got a mullet.
Oh,
yeah, and he made his teammate get a mullet as well.
Yeah, Brandon Saad. And did you see he has a third step now too?
Yes, he got his third stripe because he's earned his stripes. First he had 2 stripes on the side, and Kane had 3. Mm-hmm. But now they got them touched up. And now Saad has the
third
as
one.
well.
Yeah. His third.
But Saad doesn't even have any reason to get a mullet because he, unlike Kane, can grow a giant, massive beard. Yeah.
I know it's kind of a beard this year.
Yeah, well,
I get very low defensive about it.
Yeah, I mean it's a cute little fuzzy. I mean, it's really blonde. That's just what happens, you know?
How about you, Kathy? Do you have anything non-hockey related?
My thing is I just started watching Hannibal, and I am trying to do this so we'll be forced to talk about Hannibal next week on Fandom Spotting. Right. And it's the new, I think, NBC TV series, in which Mads Mikkelsen stars as Hannibal, and Hugh Dancy stars as Will, the FBI special agent who is investigating a number of serial killer crimes. And I think it's really great. I think it's really interesting. And I recently read this post that was describing Hannibal as like the home fatale, sort of like the femme fatale.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really a fascinating piece of writing. So that is something for fandom this week.
Awesome. And speaking of, tomorrow Teen Wolf is back.
Oh, yeah. So that's a Spanish thing.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen. And the Tumblr will implode.
Oh yeah, probably. Rocks fall, everyone dies.
Yep. But
they can't start the season that way.
I'm sure they can.
Dylan O'Brien is going to leave the series. You heard it here first.
Because he's a big movie star now.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of do think he has only 1 more year on his contract, right? Or something, so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll see. Okay, guys.
Okay,
This has been a ton of fun. And I think we even had some good points. Well, you guys definitely. Me, maybe.
Maybe like one.
And thanks to our listeners, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.